Her true story from Illinois. Her son said she never paid for anything until he needed $5,000. I was standing at the kitchen sink the morning it all started to crack. Not break, just crack. A tiny hairline fracture in the world I thought I had built. I was rinsing out my coffee mug, the same mug my youngest daughter Amy painted for me at one of those ceramic places when she was 7. It says, "World's Best Mom" in wobbly purple letters. The paint is mostly worn off now, but I still use it every single day. The water was hot, too hot. I could feel it through the rubber gloves, my hands getting red. Outside the window, the maple tree my husband planted the year we moved into this house was dropping its leaves like it does every October. Nothing special about that morning. Nothing special about any morning before the ground opens up under you. My son Mark called at 7:45. I remember the time because the Today Show was doing the weather and Al Roker was pointing at Florida. Mark never calls that early. He is not an early person. Never was. Even as a little boy, I had to drag him out of bed by his ankles. He would lie on the floor and laugh, and I would pull him across the carpet toward the bathroom. That memory hit me as I reached for the phone. A good memory, a warm one. I should have known then something was wrong, because good memories before bad news always feel like a trap your own mind sets for you. "Mom," he said. His voice was tight, not angry. Just tight like a rubber band pulled too far. "I need to talk to you about something." I said, "Sure, honey, what is it?" I turned off the water, dried my hands on the dish towel that says Kitchen Queen on it, a gift from my daughter-in-law, Jennifer, who I thought loved me then. He said, "Can you come over to the house today? Just for a little while. I need to show you something." I said, "Of course." I said I can be there by 10. I asked if everything was okay. He said, yeah, everything's fine." And he said it too fast, the way you say everything is fine when you have already decided to end something. A marriage maybe, a friendship, or a mother. I took a shower. I put on my good jeans, the ones that still fit even after all these years. I brushed my gray hair and pinned it back the way I always do. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I am 72 years old. My face is a map of everything I have lived through. The lines around my eyes from crying at my father's funeral. The sag under my chin from gaining and losing the same 20 pounds 40 times. My hands are thick now, arthritis in the knuckles, but my eyes are still clear, blue like Lake Michigan on a summer morning. I looked at myself and I thought, you are a good mother. You have always been a good mother. That was not vanity. That was just fact. I raised 3 children. I worked 2 jobs after their father lost his construction business in 2008. I cleaned toilets at the community college so Mark could have new cleats for football. I went without groceries so Amy could have a prom dress that was not from Goodwill. I gave and gave and gave until giving became my whole personality. I got in my car, a 2015 Honda CR-V. The airbag light has been on for 2 years, but I cannot afford to fix it because I gave most of my savings to Mark for the down payment on his first house. He said it was an investment. He said, "Mom, you will live with us when you are old." He said it like it was a promise, like a contract written in blood. And I believed him because he was my son, and my son would never lie to me. The drive to his house takes 20 minutes. I took the back roads past the old high school where I used to pick them up after practice, past the Dairy Queen where we would stop for blizzards on hot summer nights. Mark always got the one with Oreos. Amy always got chocolate. My youngest son, Tommy, who barely speaks to me anymore, always got strawberry. I do not think about Tommy much. Mitch hurts too much. He moved to Oregon 6 years ago and told me he needed space. I still send him a card every Christmas. He never sends one back. That is its own kind of death, a slow one. The death where someone is still breathing but they have already buried you in their heart. I pulled into Mark's driveway at 9:52. His house is nice. 2 stories, blue siding, a front porch with rocking chairs that Jennifer picked out from Pottery Barn. I helped them paint the living room when they first moved in. I held the ladder while Mark cut in along the ceiling. I made sandwiches for lunch, turkey and Swiss on rye. I remember thinking, this is what it feels like to be needed, to be useful, to be part of something. Jennifer opened the door before I could knock. She was smiling, but her eyes were not smiling. I have learned to read eyes. You get that skill after 70 years. She said, "Come in, Mom. Mark is in the kitchen." She called me Mom from the first day she met Mark. I thought it was sweet then. Now I think it was strategy. a way to make me feel like I was already inside the walls so I would never look for the door. The kitchen smelled like coffee and something else, something cold. Not a smell exactly, more like a feeling. The air was too still. Mark was sitting at the kitchen table with a folder in front of him, a plain brown folder, the kind you buy at Office Depot in a pack of 25. He did not get up when I walked in. He did not hug me. He just looked at the folder like it contained the words that would change everything, and it did. "Hey, Mom," he said, "sit down." I sat down across from him. Jennifer sat next to him. They were on one side of the table and I was on the other, like a negotiation. Like I was not his mother, but some stranger who had come to ask for money. I remember thinking that. I remember the word stranger floating through my mind, and I pushed it away because it did not belong there.
"What's this about, honey?" I asked. He opened the folder. There were papers inside. Legal papers. I could tell by the formatting, the double spacing, the numbered paragraphs, the word exhibit at the bottom of each page. I have seen enough legal papers in my life. My mother's will, my father's death certificate, the divorce papers from my first marriage that ended before Mark was even born. I know what documents look like when someone is trying to take something from you. "Mom," he said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." I said, "Okay." My heart was already beating faster, but I kept my hands still on the table. I have always been good at pretending to be calm. It is a skill you learn when you are a single mother, and you cannot let your children see you fall apart. He said, "Do you remember when you borrowed money from Grandma and Grandpa for the down payment on your first house after you and Dad split up?" I said, "Yes. Of course I remember. It was 1995. I borrowed $15,000. I paid every cent back over 7 years. Every month, every payment. Even when I had to choose between sending that check and buying groceries, I never missed a single payment." He said, "Do you remember when Grandma co-signed on your car loan in 2001? I said, "Yes." She co-signed. I paid that loan too. Every dollar, on time, for 5 years. He said, "Do you remember when you told me and Jennifer that you would help us with childcare when we had kids? That you would be there for us, that we could count on you?" I said yes, and I was there. I watched Emma every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 years. I picked her up from preschool. I fed her lunch. I read her Goodnight Moon so many times I still have it memorized. I was there for every fever and every tantrum and every skinned knee. I did not charge them $1, not $1, because that is what grandmothers do. That is what family does. Mark nodded slowly. Then he pulled a piece of paper out of the folder and slid it across the table. It was a bank statement. Not mine. His. A savings account with a balance of almost $40,000. I did not understand. I still did not understand. I looked at the paper. I looked at him. I looked at Jennifer, who was staring at her hands, folded on the table. Her knuckles were white. He said, "Mom, we need $5,000. By Friday. We have a problem with the roof. The contractor said it's an emergency. If we don't fix it now, the whole thing could cave in this winter." I said, "Okay." I said, "I can give you $5,000. You know I will always help you." But he did not say thank you. He did not look relieved. He looked at the bank statement again, and then at me, and then at Jennifer, and then back at me. He said, "Mom, we need you to sign something first." That was when the crack became a break. A real break. The kind that splits a bone right down the middle. The kind you hear before you feel. He pulled another paper out of the folder. This one was longer, 3 pages. I could see the word acknowledgement at the top. I could see my name typed in bold letters. Margaret Joyce Hanlon. My full name. The name my mother gave me. The name I have carried for 72 years. They had typed it themselves, my son and his wife. They had sat at this very table, probably after Emma went to bed, and they had typed my name into a legal document that was designed to take something from me. I said, "What is this?" He said, "It's just a formality, Mom. It just says that you recognize the money you're giving us as a gift. not alone, so there's no confusion later. I read the first paragraph. My eyes moved across the words, but my brain was not keeping up. Something about past financial support, something about no expectation of repayment, something about the undersigned affirming that all funds transferred from Margaret Hanlon to Mark and Jennifer Russo have been given freely and without condition. I looked up at him. I said, "Mark, what are you doing?" He said, "Mom, please, we just need you to sign it. The roofer's coming Friday and we have to pay him half up front. I don't want to take money from you, you know that, but we don't have a choice." I said, "You have $40,000 in savings." Jennifer spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, the way people talk to you right before they hurt you. "That's for Emma's college, Mom. We can't touch that." I said, "So you want me to give you $5,000 that I will never see again, while you sit on $40,000 that you are saving for a 5-year-old who does not even know what college is yet?" Mark's face changed. The tight rubber band snapped. He did not yell. He did not raise his voice. He just said something that I will hear every single night for the rest of my life until I die. He looked me in the eyes. My son, the baby I held in my arms for 14 hours of labor, the little boy who used to crawl into my bed after a nightmare and whisper, "Mommy, I'm scared." He looked at me and he said, "You never paid for anything. Grandma and Grandpa paid for everything. You just took, and now when I need help, you're acting like we're asking for a kidney." The room went silent. Not quiet, silent. The way a room goes silent after a gunshot. I could hear the refrigerator humming. I could hear a bird outside. I could hear my own blood moving through my ears. I said, "What did you just say?" He said, "You heard me, Mom. You never paid for anything. Grandma paid your down payment. Grandma co-signed your car. Grandma bought your groceries half the time when we were kids. You act like you sacrificed everything for us, but the truth is you just moved money around that was never yours in the first place." I stood up. My chair scraped the floor. I did not mean to stand up. My body just did it, like it was trying to escape the words before they could finish landing. "I said your grandmother gave me $15,000. I paid back every penny, with interest. I have the canceled checks in a shoebox in my closet. I have every single one." Mark said, "Interest? What interest? You think Grandma charged you interest? She was your mother. She was trying to keep you from drowning because you couldn't hold on to a man, and you couldn't hold on to a job, and you couldn't hold on to anything." Jennifer put her hand on his arm. "Mark," she said, "stop." But he would not stop. He was crying now, tears running down his face. Not sad tears, angry tears. The kind that come out when someone has been holding a story in their chest for so long that the story has turned into poison. He said, "Do you know how many times I heard Dad say that you were the reason he lost the business? That you spent everything? That you were the black hole that swallowed every dollar he ever made? I was 8 years old, Mom. 8. And I had to listen to him say those things because you were too busy working at the college to pick me up from school. So he had to get me, and he would be drunk by 4 o'clock, and he would tell me over and over how you ruined everything. I said, your father was an alcoholic who could not keep his hands off his secretary. That is why the marriage ended. Not because of money, not because of me. Because he was weak and selfish, and he chose someone else over his own family." Mark stood up too. We were standing across from each other like two strangers on a subway platform. Strangers who had never shared a bloodline, never shared a last name, never shared a life. He said, "Dad told me everything before he died. Everything. He said you emptied the joint account the week before you filed. $3,000. Gone. He said you took the TV and the stereo and the good silver. He said you cleaned the house out like a thief, and then you told the judge he was abusive so you could keep the house and the kids and everything else." I said, "None of that is true." He said, "I have the court papers, Mom. I pulled them last year. I went to the county courthouse and I requested the file. It's all there. Every lie you told, every exaggeration, every time you played the victim so you could get what you wanted." Jennifer was crying now, quiet tears. She kept looking at me and then away, like she could not decide whether to hate me or feel sorry for me. I do not blame her. I could not decide either. I sat back down. My legs gave out.
I sat down hard and the chair wobbled, and I thought, I am going to die in this chair, right here, right now. My heart is going to stop, and I am going to fall forward onto this kitchen table that I helped paint, and my son is going to have to call an ambulance, and he is going to have to explain to the paramedics why his mother is dead on the floor of his house. But I did not die. I just sat there, breathing, in and out, in and out.
I said, Mark, I do not know what your father told you. I do not know what papers you think you found, but I know the truth. I know that I worked 60 hours a week to keep food on that table. I know that I never missed a single parent-teacher conference. I know that I stayed up all night with you when you had the flu, and I held your hair back when you threw up, and I drove you to the emergency room that time you broke your arm at the skate park. I know those things because I lived them. I bled for them. I cried for them. And no piece of paper from the county courthouse can change a single second of that. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. He looked tired now. The anger was draining out of him like water out of a tub. But what was left underneath was worse. Indifference. The look of someone who has already decided that you are not worth saving. He said, Mom, I love you. I do. But I can't keep pretending that you're something you're not. You're not a victim. You're not a martyr. You're just a person who made a lot of bad choices and expected everyone else to clean up the mess. I said, I am not signing that paper. He said, then we don't need the money. We'll figure something else out. But I need you to understand something. When we bought this house, you said you wanted to live with us when you got older. You said you would help with Emma and you would be part of our family. But I can't have someone in my house who lies, not just to me, but to herself. I stood up again.
I picked up my purse from the floor. My hands were shaking. I could feel my face burning. The shame was worse than the anger. The shame of being exposed. The shame of having my own son look at me like I was a stranger he had just met in a grocery store line. I said, I will leave. I will leave right now. But before I go, I want you to know something. I have $5,000 in my checking account. That is everything I have. Everything. After your father died, I had to pay for his funeral because he did not have a life insurance policy. He did not have anything because he drank everything and gave everything to every woman who looked at him twice. I paid for his funeral. I paid to put him in the ground. And I never told you that because I did not want you to think badly of him. I wanted you to remember your father as the man who taught you how to throw a baseball, not the man who died alone in a rented apartment with a bottle of vodka on the nightstand. Mark looked at the floor. Jennifer looked at the ceiling. The room was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. I said, I will write you a check for $5,000 right now, and I will sign your paper, because I am your mother, and I would rather be broke and humiliated than watch my granddaughter grow up with a leaking roof. But I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember it when you are old, and your daughter looks at you the way you looked at me today.
And I wonder if you deserved it. I opened my purse. I took out my checkbook that still has my old address on it because I cannot afford to order new ones. I wrote the date, October 15th. I wrote the amount, $5,000 and no cents. I wrote for Roof in the memo line. Then I signed the paper he put in front of me, Margaret Joyce Hanlon. The signature was shaky, but it was mine. It was all mine. I handed him the check. He took it. He did not say thank you. He just nodded. That slow movement of his head up and down, like a machine. Like he had practiced this moment 100 times in his mind. And he had already used up all the words. I walked out of the kitchen, through the living room where Emma's toys were scattered on the floor. A pink unicorn, a plastic teapot, a picture book about a caterpillar who eats too much. I stepped over them carefully, like they were broken glass. I opened the front door. The air outside was cool and clean. The maple tree in their yard was red and orange and beautiful. I thought about the maple tree in my own yard, the one my husband planted, the one I will probably have to cut down soon because I cannot afford to maintain it anymore. I got in my car. I sat there for a long time. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just sat. My hands on the steering wheel. The engine off. The airbag light glowing on the dashboard. Like a little orange warning that I had ignored for 2 years. Like every other warning I had ignored. The way Mark looked at me during holidays. The way Jennifer stopped calling just to talk. The way Emma stopped running to me when I walked in the door. The signs were there. They were always there. But I did not want to see them, because seeing them would mean admitting that I had raised a son who did not love me. Not really. Not the way you are supposed to love the woman who changed your diapers and kissed your fevers and stayed up all night worrying about you until the sun came up. I started the car. I drove home. The drive took 22 minutes because I got stuck behind a school bus. Children were getting off the bus. Little kids with backpacks almost as big as their bodies. They were laughing, running to their parents, their mothers and fathers waiting on porches with open arms. I watched them, and I thought, those parents have no idea. They have no idea that the same hands they are holding today will hand them a legal document 40 years from now, that the same mouths that say, I love you, will one day say, you never paint for anything. I pulled into my driveway. The house looked smaller than it did this morning, older. The paint is peeling on the garage door. The gutters are full of leaves. I have not cleaned them in 2 years because I cannot climb a ladder anymore. I told Mark about the gutters last spring. He said he would come over and clean them. He never did. I went inside. I walked to the kitchen. The coffee mug was still in the sink. World's best mom.
The purple letters looked sad now. Not sweet, just sad. I picked it up and rinsed it again, even though it was already clean. I needed something to do with my hands. I thought about calling Amy, but Amy lives in Florida now. She has 3 kids of her own and a husband who travels for work. She calls me every Sunday. We talk about the weather and the grandkids and nothing real. I have never told her about the money, about the paper I signed, about the things Mark said. I do not want to put her in the middle. She loves her brother. She does not need to know what he did to me. I thought about calling Tommy, but Tommy has not answered my calls in 3 years. I still dial his number sometimes, just to hear his voicemail. The recording is old. His voice sounds young, younger than he is. He says, leave a message and I will call you back. But he never calls back, not once. So I did not call anyone. I just stood at the kitchen sink and watched the sun move across the floor. The light shifted from the window to the refrigerator to the stove. I stood there for hours. I do not know how many. The phone did not ring. The doorbell did not ring. The world outside kept spinning like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something had cracked open in the center of my life, and all the love I had poured into my children had leaked out onto the floor. And I could not scoop it back up. I could not put it back inside me. It was just gone, evaporated, like it had never been there at all.
That was 6 months ago. 6 months since the kitchen table. 6 months since I wrote that check. 6 months since my son looked at me like I was a stranger who owed him something. I still live in the same house. The gutters are still full of leaves. The airbag light is still on. The checkbook has a different number at the bottom now. A smaller number. An empty number. I still see Emma sometimes. Mark drops her off on Saturday mornings for a few hours. He does not come inside. He just pulls into the driveway and lets her out and drives away. He does not wave. He does not look back. I watch his car disappear around the corner, and then I take Emma inside and make her pancakes and pretend that everything is fine. She is 6 now. She does not know what happened. She will never know if I can help it. She will grow up believing that her grandmother is just an old woman who lives in a small house and makes pancakes on Saturday mornings. She will not know that I gave $5,000 to fix her roof. She will not know that I signed a paper saying it was a gift. She will not know that her father called me a liar in his own kitchen, while his wife sat there and cried. Maybe that is for the best. Maybe the truth would only hurt her, the way it hurt me. The way it keeps hurting me. Every single day, when I wake up in a house that is too quiet, and a bed that is too big, and a life that is too long. I am 72 years old. I have maybe 10 good years left if I am lucky. Maybe 5. Maybe 1. I do not know. Nobody knows. That is the thing about being old. You do not know when the end is coming, but you know it is closer than it used to be, and you start to wonder what you are leaving behind. Not money, not houses, not silver, but something else, something that matters more. I wanted to leave behind children who remembered me with love, who would sit around a table after my funeral and tell stories about the time I burned the Thanksgiving turkey, or the time I sang off-key in the car, or the time I stayed up all night sewing Halloween costumes. I wanted to be remembered as a good mother, a loving mother, a mother who tried her best even when her best was not enough. But now I do not know what they will say. Maybe they will say she never paid for anything. Maybe they will say she took everything and gave nothing. Maybe they will say her whole life was a lie, and she was the only one who didn't know it. I sit in my living room most nights now. The television is on, but I am not watching it. The light from the screen flickers across the walls, the same walls I have looked at for 30 years, the same carpet, the same curtains, the same pictures of my children when they were young and still loved me. There is a photograph on the fireplace mantel, Mark and Amy and Tommy at the beach. They are maybe 10 and 8 and 6. They are building a sandcastle. Mark is holding a plastic shovel. Amy is pouring water into the moat.
Tommy is sitting in the middle with sand all over his face. They are all smiling. They are all looking at me. The woman behind the camera. The woman who took that picture. The woman who thought that moment would last forever. But nothing lasts forever. Not love, not family, not the memory of a perfect day at the beach. Everything erodes. Everything washes away. Even the sand castle they built was gone by the next morning. The tide came in and took it. The same way the tide came in and took my son, my daughter, my whole life. I still have the $5,000 check register in my purse, the carbon copy, the one that shows the money leaving my account and going to Mark and Jennifer Russo for a roof that probably did not even need fixing. I look at it sometimes when I cannot sleep. I hold it in my hands, and I think about the moment I signed that paper, the moment I gave away the last thing I had. Not the money. The money was nothing. The last thing I had was my dignity, my belief that I had been a good mother, and I signed it away with a shaky signature on a piece of paper from a brown folder. The funny thing is, I do not even know if the roof was broken. I never asked. I never went back to look. Maybe it was. Maybe there was a leak, and maybe it really was an emergency, and maybe my son was telling me the truth about that one small thing. But it does not matter. The roof was not the point. The roof was just the excuse. The roof was the knife. And he used it to cut me open and see what was inside. What he found was an old woman, a tired woman. A woman who had spent her whole life believing that love was a bank account, and if you kept making deposits, eventually you would have enough to retire on. But love is not a bank account. Love is a leaky roof. Love lets the rain in no matter how much you spend trying to fix it. I am still here. I am still breathing. I am still making pancakes on Saturday mornings for a little girl who will grow up and forget me. That is the deal. That is the contract. That is the paper I signed the day I became a mother. Not on Mark's kitchen table, but in a hospital room in 1983, when the nurse put that tiny, screaming baby in my arms, and I promised to love him no matter what. No matter what. Those are the words you do not see in the fine print. Those are the words that kill you. Because no matter what means everything. It means the lies. It means the betrayals. It means the $5,000. It means the look in his eyes when he said, "You never paid for anything." It means still loving him anyway, even now, even after everything, even when the love is just a dull ache in your chest that never goes away.
I do not know why I am telling you this. Maybe because I need someone to know. Someone who is not my daughter or my son or my ex-husband or the woman at the grocery store who asks how my grandchildren are doing. I need someone to know that I was not perfect, that I made mistakes.
That I probably did lie about some things because the truth was too ugly to look at. But I was not the monster he saw in that kitchen. I was just a mother who loved too much and held on too tight, and did not know how to let go until it was too late and everything was already gone. If you have children, if you have a son or a daughter who looks at you like you are their whole world, hold on to that. Hold on to it with both hands. Because one day they will grow up. One day they will remember things differently than you remember them. One day they will sit you down at a kitchen table with a brown folder, and they will tell you that you never paid for anything. And you will want to scream. You will want to show them the shoebox full of canceled checks. You will want to remind them about the sleepless nights and the second jobs and the prom dresses from Goodwill. But you will not, because you will see in their eyes that it does not matter. The story they have written in their heads is already finished, and you are not the hero of that story. You are not even a character. You are just a plot point, an obstacle, a debt that needs to be acknowledged and discharged. So you will sign the paper. You will write the check. You will get in your car and drive home and sit in the dark and wonder where it all went wrong. And you will never get an answer, because there is no answer. There is just the living, the long, slow living until you do not have to live anymore.
I am going to make myself a cup of tea now. The water is already boiling. I can hear it whistling from the kitchen. The same kitchen where I started this story. The same sink. The same coffee mug with the faded purple letters. The same window, looking out at the same maple tree that my husband planted 40 years ago. The tree is still there, still dropping its leaves, still standing, still growing, even though nobody takes care of it. Even though the branches are getting too heavy, and the roots are cracking the driveway, and the whole thing might come crashing down in the next big storm. That is the thing about trees. They do not need anyone to love them. They just keep growing. They just keep reaching toward the light, even when the light is thin and gray and barely warm enough to keep them alive. Maybe that is what I will do. Just keep growing. Just keep reaching. Just keep making pancakes on Saturday mornings for a little girl who will never know how much it costs to love her. The tea is ready. The kettle is silent now. The house is quiet. The world is quiet. And somewhere out there, my son is sitting in his own kitchen with his own family and his own $40,000 and his own version of the truth. A version where I am the villain, where I am the one who never paid, where I am the black hole that swallowed everything good. I hope he is happy. I hope he sleeps well at night. I hope the roof does not leak. I hope Emma grows up knowing that she is loved by more people than she can count. And I hope that when I die, someone remembers to water the maple tree, because that tree is the only thing I have left that still believes in me.